herself, only to have her call it clumpy. At 15, I tutored my brother through finals. All the while he called me a know-it-all and slammed his door in my face. At 16, I gave my entire paycheck to my dad so he could cover bills, but got yelled at when I brought it up later after he said I was useless. I was always useful, but never loved. My parents and my brother, my only family, had packed up and moved 2 states away without telling me. I found out from the landlord a week later. I had a week to move out because they'd canceled the lease early. I slept at a friend's house for 3 nights before I ran out of places to go. Eventually, I was sleeping in the back of a storage unit I rented with the last of my savings. I snuck in and showered at the YMCA, ate peanut butter with a spoon for my breakfast, lunch, and dinner, applied for jobs on free library computers, and pretended everything was okay. Eventually, I got hired at a diner, server for the night shift. The manager was gruff, but fair, paid me cash under the table until I could get an ID. She let me nap in the break room once when I nearly collapsed from exhaustion. I clawed my way through it, bought a prepaid phone, saved every single receipt, watched free YouTube tutorials on finance and goal setting. The first year, I barely survived, but I made it through. The turning point came when a regular at the diner offered me a temp job cleaning out office files. It paid triple what I made serving. I said yes. That job led to another, and another. I learned quickly, showed up early, and asked questions. By 22, I was freelancing full-time. By 25, I launched a consulting business. Just me, a folding table, and a borrowed laptop. By 27, I had 5 contractors under me, my own office, and a client roster that included companies I used to dream about. And by 29, I was officially a millionaire. Not influencer millionaire, not fake it for Instagram millionaire. Actual savings with a retirement account, no debt, paid off apartment, health insurance I could afford. The first time I saw my bank app hit 7 figures, I cried. Throughout those tough years, my family never reached out, not even once. I saw my brother pop up in a suggested friends list once. He's married now, still living in the state they disappeared to. I stared at the screen for a long time, wondering if he ever told his wife about me, if he said I ran away, or if he says nothing at all. Sometimes I still wonder if it would have been easier to hate them. But truthfully, it was never hate. It was heartbreak. I go to therapy now because I want to stay unbroken. I've made a list of people who saved me when they didn't have to, like coworkers, classmates, and strangers who showed me what real support looks like. Last week, a podcast interview I did about surviving family estrangement blew up online. It hit 1 million views in 4 days. My inbox filled with messages of support, gratitude, and strangers telling me I put words to their pain. And then, one email stood out. The subject line, "You're still our daughter." It was from my mom. No apology. Just a paragraph about hearing my side and how maybe we could talk. Then another message, this time from my brother. "We miss you. Can we fix this?" I stared at the screen for a long time before closing the laptop. I sat with it and wondered if healing means looking back or staying forward. I didn't respond right away, so I needed time to process. My therapist, Melissa, suggested I take at least a week before making any decisions. "Give yourself space to feel whatever comes up," she said during our session. "There's no rush to respond." So I did. I focused on work, went to the gym, had dinner with friends. Normal stuff. But those emails haunted me. I kept opening them, reading them, closing them again. My mom's message felt cold, clinical almost, like she was reaching out to a distant acquaintance. My brother's was shorter but somehow felt more genuine. I couldn't stop thinking about them. After 10 days, I decided to reply to my brother first. Just something simple. I wrote, "It's been 12 years. What changed?" Then I hit send before I could overthink it. His response came within an hour. He said the podcast made him realize what they'd done. He claimed he was only 15 when they left me, that he didn't have a choice, that he'd always wondered about me, that he'd looked me up online a few times over the years but never had the courage to reach out, that seeing me successful made him proud. I didn't buy it. Not completely. If he'd been so concerned, why wait until I was publicly successful? I asked him exactly that. His next email was longer. He admitted that money was tight for them, that my parents' business had failed, that his wife was pregnant with their second child, that medical bills were piling up. I felt my stomach drop. There it was, the real reason. I didn't respond for another week. Then my mom sent a follow-up email with old family photos attached. Pictures of me as a baby, pictures of us at the beach when I was maybe 5 or 6, pictures of me and Michael building a snowman, happy moments that felt like they belonged to someone else's life. At the bottom of the email, she wrote, "We made mistakes. We want to make amends." I showed the emails to Melissa during our next session. She reminded me that I was in control, that I could set boundaries, that I didn't owe them anything. But she also said that closure might help me move forward, whether that meant reconciliation or a final goodbye. I nodded along, but inside I felt conflicted. Part of me wanted to tell them to go to hell. Another part wanted to understand why they left me. And a tiny, stupid part of me still wanted them to love me. I decided to meet my brother first. Just him. No parents. We arranged to meet at a coffee shop in Chicago, halfway between where we both lived. I flew in that morning, checked into a hotel, and tried to calm my nerves. I almost canceled 3 times. But at 2 p.m., I walked into that coffee shop and saw him immediately. He looked older, heavier, with a receding hairline, but his eyes were the same. He stood up when he saw me, awkward and uncertain. I didn't hug him. We just sat across from each other with our coffees, like strangers. The first 20 minutes were painful. Small talk about the weather, about my flight, about his drive. Then he started apologizing. "Emma, I'm so sorry," Michael said, his voice cracking. "I was just a kid when it happened. I didn't know they were planning to leave you behind until it was too late. I was too scared to stand up to them. I just listened, watching his face for signs of deception. He seemed sincere, but I'd been fooled before. I asked him the question that had haunted me for 12 years. Why me? Why was I the one left behind?" He looked down at his coffee. "They always saw you as the strong one, the independent one, the one who would be fine on your own. They thought you didn't need them as much as I did. They convinced themselves you'd be better off without them." It was the most ridiculous thing I'd ever heard. I told him about the storage unit, about eating peanut butter for weeks, about showering at the YMCA and working night shifts at 17. His face crumpled. "I didn't know," he whispered. They told me you had a plan, that you wanted to stay behind, that you were going to live with a friend's family, that you'd chosen to separate from us. All lies. By the end of our meeting, I wasn't sure what to think. He seemed genuinely remorseful. He showed me pictures of his wife and daughter, told me about his job as an accountant, asked about my business, didn't directly ask for money, which surprised me. When we parted, he hugged me. I let him, but I didn't hug back. I just stood there, arms at my sides, feeling nothing. Back at my hotel, I called Melissa, told her everything. She pointed out that while my brother seemed sorry, he was still framing himself as a victim rather than acknowledging his role in my abandonment. She was right. He'd been 15, not 5. Old enough to pick up a phone, old enough to send an email, old enough to check on me at some point in 12 years. That night, my mom called. I hadn't given her my number, so Michael must have. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won out. Her voice sounded older, raspier. She cried when I said hello, started talking about how proud she was of me, how she'd always known I would succeed, how special I was. I let her talk herself out. Then I asked her the same question I'd asked my brother. Why me? Her answer was different. We were in debt, Emma. We couldn't afford 3 mouths to feed. We knew you were smart enough to make it on your own. We figured you'd go to social services and get placed with a better family. We thought we were doing you a favor. I hung up on her, blocked her number immediately, threw my phone across the room and screamed into a pillow. The next morning, I had an email from my dad. First contact in 12 years. He didn't apologize. Instead, he wrote about how hard their lives had been, about medical bills and failed businesses, about how Michael's wife needed surgery, about how they were facing eviction. Then, at the very end, he asked if I could help the family out. Not a single question about my life, not a single acknowledgement of what they'd done. I forwarded the email to Melissa with the subject line, and there it is. She called me immediately, despite it being Sunday. We talked for an hour, about boundaries, about forgiveness versus reconciliation, about the difference between helping someone and enabling them, about what I actually wanted versus what I thought I should want. By Monday morning, I had made my decision. I emailed my brother, told him I was glad we'd met, that I understood he was in a difficult position when we were younger, that I was willing to have a relationship with him and his family, but with clear boundaries. No money, no loans, no financial support of any kind, and no relationship with our parents until they took full responsibility for their actions. His response was immediate and telling. I'm really disappointed, Emma, he wrote. Our parents really need help. Families should support each other. You're being selfish with your success. All the guilt buttons they'd installed in me as a child, pushed at once. I didn't respond. Instead, I booked an appointment with Melissa and a vacation to Bali. I needed space to process everything. 3 days later, Michael called, left a voicemail apologizing for his email, said he understood my position, said he still wanted a relationship on my terms, said he'd respect my boundaries. I listened to it twice, trying to decide if he was sincere or just changing tactics. I decided to give him one more chance, but with my guard up. I went to Bali anyway, spent 2 weeks on the beach, hiking through rice fields, and meditating. I needed the distance. When I got back, I had 6 more emails from my dad, each more desperate than the last. I didn't read past the subject lines. I also had a text from Michael asking if we could talk again. I agreed to a phone call, nothing more. The call started okay. He apologized again for pushing. I've been thinking a lot about what you told me, he said. I'm in therapy now too. I believed that part. He sounded different, less defensive. We talked about his kids, about my business, normal stuff. Then he mentioned that our parents were coming to visit him next weekend, asked if I would consider meeting them, just for an hour, in a public place. I felt my chest tighten. I'm not ready for that, Michael. He pushed a little but backed off when I got quiet. After we hung up, I called Melissa. We had an emergency session that night. She helped me realize I was afraid of seeing them. Not because I hated them, but because I still craved their approval. Still wanted them to love me. Still wanted to be enough. It was pathetic, but it was true. I cried for an hour in her office. The next day, Michael texted again. Said our mom was crying all night after he told her I wouldn't meet them. Said our dad was talking about driving to my city anyway. I felt panicky. Blocked Michael's number immediately. Then I called my assistant and told her I was working from home for the week. Ordered groceries for delivery. Basically hid in my apartment like a scared kid. On Wednesday, the doorman called up. Said there was a couple asking for me. Wouldn't give their names. I knew instantly. Told him I wasn't accepting visitors. 5 minutes later, my phone rang from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. It was my dad. Emma, we drove 8 hours to see you, his angry voice said. You're being childish. We deserve a chance to explain. I deleted the message and turned off my phone. Thursday morning, I woke up to someone pounding on my door. I froze in bed, heart racing, checked the peephole. It was them, my parents, standing in my hallway like they had any right to be there. Emma, please. My mom's voice came through the door. We just want to talk to you. We know you're in there, my dad added. We love you. We're sorry. I didn't open the door. I sat on the floor with my back against the wall, shaking. Eventually, they left. I called building security immediately, told them not to let those people up again. The guard sounded concerned, asked if I needed police. I said no, just don't let them up. Then I called Melissa. She came over on her lunch break, brought me a sandwich and sat with me while I cried, told me I had every right to set boundaries, that I didn't owe them a meeting, that what they were doing was harassment, not reconciliation. After she left, I got an email from Michael. He was furious, said I'd humiliated our parents, said they were staying in a cheap motel they couldn't afford because they were so desperate to see me, said his wife needed surgery next month and they were hoping I could help, said I was being cruel. I didn't respond. Friday morning, I decided I needed to leave town for a while. Booked a flight to visit my friend Rachel in Portland. She'd been one of the people who helped me when I was homeless. Let me crash on her couch for a week when I had nowhere else to go. I trusted her completely. I was throwing clothes in a suitcase when my phone rang. Unknown number again. I ignored it. 10 minutes later, my doorman called. Said there was a woman downstairs having what looked like a medical issue. Said she was asking for me by name. Claimed to be my mother. I felt sick. Told him to call an ambulance if she needed help, but I wasn't coming down. He sounded uncomfortable but agreed. I finished packing and headed downstairs an hour later. Checked the lobby carefully before entering. No sign of them. I felt relieved but also weirdly guilty. The doorman gave me a strange look as I passed. Told me the ambulance had come. That the woman had been having chest pains. That she'd been taken to Memorial Hospital. I nodded and hurried out to my waiting Uber. At the airport, I got another call from Michael. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Mom had a heart attack. He was crying. She's in surgery. This is your fault for stressing her out. I hung up on him. Called Melissa instead. She answered immediately. I told her what happened. Asked if I was a terrible person. Emma, listen to me, she said firmly. You are not responsible for your mother's health. This feels like another manipulation tactic. Get on your plane and take care of yourself. I did. Spent the weekend with Rachel. Told her everything. She remembered when my family abandoned me. Remembered how broken I'd been. She was furious on my behalf. They don't deserve a minute of your time, she said, pouring me another glass of wine. Not after what they did to you. It felt good to have someone so firmly in my corner. Sunday night, I got an email from my dad. My mom was stable, had a stent put in, would be released Tuesday. The email ended with, "She's asking for you. Don't you think you've punished us enough?" I showed Rachel. She rolled her eyes so hard I thought they might get stuck. Told me this was textbook guilt tripping. I knew she was right, but part of me still felt responsible. I flew home Monday. Found flowers outside my apartment door. The card said, "Please call us. We're staying at the Holiday Inn until Wednesday." No apology. No acknowledgement of boundaries. Just another demand. I threw the flowers in the trash chute. Tuesday morning, I got a text from an unknown number. It was a photo of my mom in a hospital bed, looking pale and small. The message said, "She might not have much time left. Do you really want to live with this regret?" I blocked the number. Called Melissa. She suggested I take a social media break, change my number, maybe even stay with a friend for a while. I agreed. Called my assistant and told her I'd be working remotely for 2 weeks. Packed another bag. Before I could leave, my doorman called again. Said there was a young woman downstairs asking for me. Said she had a small child with her. Said she claimed to be my sister-in-law. I felt cornered. These people wouldn't stop. I told the doorman to send her up. Decided to face this head-on. The woman who knocked on my door looked exhausted. Had dark circles under her eyes. Was holding a sleeping toddler against her shoulder. "I'm Jenny," she said quietly. "Michael's wife. I came alone because I wanted to talk to you without family drama." I let her in reluctantly. Offered her water. She accepted gratefully. Jenny put her sleeping daughter on my couch, tucking a blanket around her. Then she sat at my kitchen table and started talking. "I only learned about you 3 years ago," she admitted. "Michael told me you ran away at 17. Cut contact with the family. I always thought it was strange but never pushed. Hearing your podcast was a shock. I confronted him, and he finally admitted the truth. I just listened, not sure what to believe anymore." Jenny seemed sincere. "I'm horrified by what they did to you," she continued. "I insisted Michael reach out, but I had no idea they were going to ask you for money. I'm embarrassed and angry about that. Yes, I do need surgery for a thyroid condition, but we have insurance. Your parents are the ones in financial trouble, not us." I asked her why she'd come. She looked me straight in the eyes. "You deserve to know the whole truth," she said. "Your parents have been telling everyone you abandoned the family, that you were mentally unstable, that you stole money from them before disappearing, that they spent years looking for you. All lies to cover what they'd done." I felt like I'd been punched. "How do you know this is true?" She pulled out her phone, showed me Facebook posts from years back. My mom asking for prayers to find her troubled daughter. My dad claiming I'd taken their savings before running away. Posts about hiring private investigators, about checking homeless shelters. All carefully crafted to make them look like victims. All dated years after they'd abandoned me. Jenny apologized for being part of it, even unknowingly. Said she'd confronted my parents too. That they'd admitted everything to her when she threatened to tell the whole family the truth. That they were desperate now because their lies were unraveling. That my podcast had people asking questions they couldn't answer. Her daughter woke up then. A cute little girl with curly hair. "This is Lily," Jenny said softly. "She's 3. I have another daughter on the way. I want my children to know their aunt, but only if you want that too. No pressure, no guilt. Just an open door if you ever choose to walk through it." After they left, I sat in my apartment for hours, processing, called Melissa again, told her everything Jenny had said. She wasn't surprised. "Abusers often control the narrative," she explained. "They create alternate realities where they're the victims." She asked what I wanted to do now. I honestly didn't know. That night, I got another email from my dad. This one was different, angry, threatening. Said if I told lies about them online, they would sue me for defamation. Said they had proof I'd stolen from them. Said they'd go to the media with their side if I didn't take down the podcast and issue a public apology. Said they expected financial compensation for the damage to their reputations. I forwarded it to Melissa, then to my lawyer, Marcus. He called me immediately. "This is empty threatening," he assured me. "Truth is an absolute defense against defamation. Save everything but don't respond. I'll handle it if they actually file anything," which I doubt they will. People who are actually going to sue don't usually announce it first. The next day, I got a call from Michael. I let it go to voicemail. He sounded panicked. "Emma, Jenny told me she visited you. Our parents are furious. They're saying terrible things about her now too. I'm scared they're going to try something desperate. Please call me back on Jenny's phone, not mine." I didn't know what to believe anymore. Called Marcus again. He suggested meeting Michael and Jenny somewhere public, with him present as my lawyer, just to hear them out. I agreed reluctantly. We set up a meeting at a restaurant near Marcus's office for the next day. They showed up on time. Both looked terrible, stressed, exhausted. Jenny had a bruise on her arm she kept trying to hide. Michael couldn't make eye contact. "I'm Marcus, Emma's attorney," he said as we sat down, which made Michael flinch. But we sat down, ordered coffee, and they started talking. The story that came out was worse than I'd imagined. My parents had been living off Michael for years, moving in and out of his house, taking money for emergencies, watching his kids while criticizing his parenting. When Jenny confronted them about me, my dad had grabbed her arm, hard enough to leave marks. Michael had kicked them out. They were now staying in a motel, calling constantly, showing up at his work. I listened without interrupting, watched my brother break down as he described how our parents had controlled him his entire life, how they'd convinced him I abandoned them, how he'd been too scared to question their version of events, how he'd been trapped in their web of manipulation and lies for 12 years, how he was terrified they would hurt Jenny or the kids. Marcus asked careful questions about financial entanglements, about house titles and bank accounts, about whether my parents had keys to their house. Michael answered everything, said they'd co-signed his mortgage, said his dad was still on his bank account from when he was in college, said they had spare keys, said they knew all his passwords. Marcus took notes, occasionally glancing at me. By the end of the meeting, I felt drained but clearer. This wasn't just about me anymore. Michael and Jenny were victims too, in their own way, different from me, but still trapped. Marcus suggested they speak to a lawyer of their own, gave them a colleague's card, told them to change their locks, passwords, and bank accounts immediately. They nodded, looking overwhelmed but grateful. As we were leaving, Michael hugged me. This time, I hugged him back. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was something. A recognition that we'd both been damaged by the same people, that maybe we could help each other heal. That night, I got a series of increasingly unhinged texts from my parents' numbers. Accusations, threats, guilt trips. I blocked them all. Then I called Jenny, asked if they were safe. She said yes. They'd changed the locks, stayed with friends the night before, were looking into a restraining order. I felt relieved but still worried. The next morning, I woke up to my phone ringing. It was Jenny, hysterical. "They broke into our house," she sobbed. "They took Lily's baby photos, important documents, Michael's laptop. They left a note. Family matters should stay in the family." I told her to call the police immediately, said I'd meet them at their house, called Marcus on my way. When I arrived, there was a police car outside their house. An officer was taking statements in the living room. The place was a mess. Drawers pulled out, papers scattered. Michael was sitting on the couch, head in his hands. Jenny was pointing out missing items to the officer. I introduced myself as family, there to help. The officer seemed skeptical that grandparents would break in. "Are you sure they didn't just use a key?" he asked. "Maybe this is a misunderstanding?" Jenny showed him her bruised arm, told him about the escalating behavior, about the threats, about how they'd been stalking them. He took notes but didn't seem convinced. Said without evidence, it would be hard to prove who did this. After the police left, we cleaned up together. Found more missing things. Photo albums, financial documents, the spare key to their car. Michael looked defeated. "This is my fault," he said. "I should have protected my family better. Should have stood up to them years ago. Should have looked for you harder." I didn't disagree, but I didn't pile on either. We were beyond that now. Marcus arrived as we were finishing, looked around grimly, said this changed things, that we needed to document everything, that breaking and entering was a serious crime, that we should all stay somewhere else for a few days, that he'd help us file for emergency restraining orders in the morning. We nodded, too exhausted to argue. Jenny packed bags for them while Michael and I secured the house as best we could, changed locks again, checked windows, discussed security cameras. It felt surreal, taking these precautions against our own parents.
Putting to people, it scares them to hear the truth, which Hey, what's up? I'm gonna be reviewing a video called
Am I the asshole for telling my mom? Am I the asshole for telling my mom she can't share a room or a bed with her boyfriend in my home? When I, 27 female, was in college I met my boyfriend and we moved in together, sharing a place with some friends, after dating for a year. I was 19 when we met and 20 when we moved in together. We decided from that point onward to take turns spending Christmas with our families. But the first year we were supposed to see mine, my mom made it clear my boyfriend could not stay and we weren't sharing a room or a bed in her house. My dad argued in favor of letting it happen since I was an adult and living with him already, but mom said no. She hated that I wouldn't stay at their house then and instead booked an Airbnb. She said I should respect the rules of her house and I told her I was, but I didn't want to tell my boyfriend to be alone on the holidays and especially when his family had welcomed us together happily. After that I made it clear there would be no coming to visit like that if I couldn't sleep with my boyfriend. My mom said it wasn't like we were married, so she had every right to that rule. 2 years ago my dad died and for 11 months my mom has been in a relationship with her boyfriend. They don't live together exactly, but according to my brother he was there most nights while he was still there. My mom and brother aren't really talking right now. My brother could hear mom and her boyfriend in bed and he hated it, so he moved out. He's also 22 and had wanted to, but it gave him the push to move. My mom was furious and demanded to know why he was leaving out of nowhere, and she freaked when my brother told her he was tired of hearing them. It started mom off on him not being happy for her that she found someone again after dad died. My mom seems to be missing my brother being around and she told me she misses having her kids around her, so she wanted to visit for a week or two soon. She wanted to bring her boyfriend along and I told her she can't share a room or a bed with him in my home. I told her I do not want to hear that. She got mad at me and said she's a grown woman and should be allowed her freedom. I told her she was all right denying it to me and I wasn't even planning to have sex in her house. But it sounded like she doesn't care if we hear or not and I'm not dealing with it. I also told her I wasn't going to reward her with sharing with her boyfriend when she has been so strict with me about it. My mom accused me of acting like a petty child. Now to the next story, story 2. I was blamed for infertility by my ex-husband and in-laws, despite normal results, so I left. Now my ex has lost everything due to his lies. I, 32F, was married to my ex-husband Jake, 34M, for 5 years. Initially, we had a good relationship. When we first met, Jake was charming, amusing, and easy to chat to. I genuinely believed I had met someone who would always have my back. But everything changed once we married. Jake's parents, particularly his mother, began pressuring us to have children almost immediately following the wedding. At first, the comments were lighthearted, such as, "When will we have a grandchild?" However, it quickly became the only topic they wanted to discuss. For reference, Jake is an only child whose parents were extremely controlling. His mother was the type of person who had a plan for everything: how Jake should live, who he should marry, and what his life should be like. While we were dating, I had no idea how much power his family wielded. However, following the wedding, it became evident that Jake had a strong desire to gain their approval for all he did. He was especially eager for his mother's approval, which produced a lot of stress between us. Around 2 years into our marriage, Jake's parents' push to have children became overwhelming. We had tried, but nothing was happening, so I went to the doctor to make sure everything was fine on my end. All of my tests came back normal, which was a relief for me. Naturally, I suggested Jake get tested as well, just to rule out any problems on his end. That's when things started to unravel. Jake refused to be tested. He acted as if I had insulted him by even mentioning it. He asserted that he wasn't the problem and refused to talk about it anymore. I was frustrated by his reaction since all I wanted to do was figure out what was going on so we could move forward. However, Jake was locked in a haughty mindset, as if admitting a potential problem on his side was impossible or shameful. As Jake continued to decline testing, I began to feel bad about myself. Even though the physicians had told me that nothing was wrong with me, his actions made me feel as if I was somehow to blame. Meanwhile, Jake's parents persisted with their intrusive questions and comments. Every time we visited them, the subject of their prospective grandchildren dominated the conversation. It got to the point where I dreaded going to family gatherings because I knew they'd just talk about having grandchildren. No matter how many times I attempted to explain that these things take time or that we were working on them, his mother gave me a condescending look, as if she was disappointed in me. Then they began making direct statements to me about how they hoped I was not the problem. At one family gathering, where a slew of Jake's distant relatives were present, Jake's mother bluntly informed me that she hoped I wasn't damaged, in a very loud voice, with a phony, worried expression on her face. I felt humiliated. Jake said nothing. He just sat there awkwardly, laughing it off as if it was no big thing. That stung more than anything. I believed he should have defended me, but instead he allowed his parents to humiliate me. When I tried to talk to him about it, he dismissed it, saying it was simply his mother's sense of humor. A few months later, we had another family meal, and Jake's mother chose to make another harsh remark. This time, she did not hold back. She went into hysterics, wailing about how old she was getting and how I was wrecking her dreams of having grandchildren. She then started screaming in my face, calling me a broken woman, and a disgrace to womanhood. Everyone stayed silent. I was horrified. I did everything I could to keep myself from saying something rude. I knew she enjoyed humiliating me in front of her family, but this was beyond uncalled for. I looked around to see if anyone had anything to say, but everyone just kept looking down at their plates. The only answer was Jake's father nodding in agreement with his wife. Jake, like the rest of his family, simply gazed at his plate, pretending nothing was going on. That was it. That was my breaking point. I couldn't believe that, despite everything I'd gone through while trying to figure out why we couldn't conceive, Jake refused to defend me. Seeing him sit there passively, without even looking at me, let me realize where our marriage stood. That night, when we arrived home, I packed my bags and informed Jake that I was going. He hardly reacts. He didn't seem to care that I was done. He was so accustomed to his parents being the focus that he had no idea he had lost me. That only made me angry. How difficult is it to stand up for someone you claim to love? I left that day and have never looked back. Leaving was not an easy decision, but it was the best one I've ever made. After I left, I moved in with a buddy for a few months while I planned my future moves. I filed for divorce, and the process went fairly smoothly. Jake did not fight it, and we ended things peacefully. After the divorce was finalized, I focused on reconstructing my life. I returned to my profession, surrounded myself with helpful friends, and finally met someone new, my now husband, Sam, 35 million. Sam has been an absolute breath of fresh air. In many ways, he is diametrically opposed to Jake. He listens, communicates, and, most importantly, always looks out for me. We ended up dating for only a year because I became pregnant and we rushed to marry. Let me tell you, I've had a much better time with Sam in this short period than I did with Jake. Sam and I were ecstatic about my pregnancy. It meant so much more to me after everything I'd been through with Jake and his family. Now, let's look at what transpired recently. One day, while out shopping with Sam, I ran across Jake's parents in the mall. To recap, it's been 2 years since I last saw them. I was visibly pregnant at the time, and their reaction was priceless. They were stunned, to say the least. They tried to be courteous by making small chat, but I could see they were shocked to see me pregnant. I'll admit that seeing their reactions made me feel vindicated. They spent years torturing and discouraging me for being unable to conceive, yet look where I am now. I hastily said goodbye and nearly forgot I had met them. Sam and I were very busy preparing for the baby, and I had no desire to linger on the past. But then, approximately a week after the mall incident, Jake began texting and calling me. Initially, I ignored them. I assumed his parents had informed him of my pregnancy and new marriage, and Jake was just being nosy. But he did not stop. I eventually opened one of his texts. He was infuriated. When his parents discovered I was pregnant, they challenged him about our marriage and why we had never had children. Jake apparently never corrected his parents when they assumed I was the reason we couldn't have children. In fact, he encouraged people to believe I was the problem. When they saw I was pregnant, they understood he had been lying to them all along. According to what I've heard, his parents were outraged when they discovered the truth. They accused him of squandering years of their lives by convincing them that they would never have grandkids because of me, when in truth, Jake was most likely the one with fertility troubles. To make matters worse for Jake, his parents had always intended to leave him a sizable inheritance. However, after finding his lies, they cut him off totally. Of course, Jake blamed me for everything. He said that if I had not flaunted my pregnancy in front of his parents, none of this would have occurred. He accused me of ruining his life because he had lost everything, even the inheritance he had hoped for. I couldn't believe he was blaming this on me. I simply moved on with my life, and it was not my fault that his lies came back to haunt him. I have not answered Jake's mails, and I do not intend to. I'm content with where I am today, and I have no desire to become engaged in his family turmoil. In my opinion, Jake dug his own hole. He would not be in this situation if he had not allowed his parents to treat me like garbage or lied to them about why we couldn't have children. I really wish Jake would stop making me feel terrible about something that is entirely his fault. Despite my intense feelings about this, I spoke with a friend yesterday and told her all that had transpired. She told me I was wrong to leave Jake like that and that I should have pushed him harder to complete the examinations. She also claimed I should not have spoken with Jake's parents and that it was petty of me to do so. I mean, I can see how I was being petty. I never wanted to hurt Jake. I must say, however, that Jake being punished for his falsehoods is a pleasant bonus. Anyway, my husband told me that anything my buddy claimed was false, but I can't help but wonder if there was some truth to what she said. So, am I an asshole, AITA, for leaving my ex-husband after his family labeled me broken? And am I wrong not to feel sorry about him losing his inheritance? Update 1. Escalation and desperation. Okay, so things have grown much more complicated, and I really need to vent. After I posted my original story, I assumed that was the end of it. But oh boy, was I mistaken. Jake has been blowing up my phone non-stop. I blocked his number, but he then began texting me on social media. I also blocked him there, but he kept creating new accounts just to reach out. He even began phoning from several numbers. I did not respond to any of it, but the texts grew increasingly frantic and angry over time. At first, he was simply blaming me for damaging his connection with his parents. But now he's gone over the deep end, claiming I owe him since I took away his future. He insists that if I had stayed with him, none of this would have occurred. It's really exhausting. Some individuals in the comments on my initial post agreed with my buddy and questioned why I didn't push harder to persuade Jake to take fertility tests. So let me be clear. I tried. I truly tried. But every time I offered it, Jake would shut me down entirely. He acted as if I had betrayed him simply by bringing it up. He refused to speak to me for days after I inquired about the tests. I tried everything I could to be patient, but there's only so much you can do when someone is so stubborn. I eventually realized I couldn't force him to do something he didn't want to do, so I had to let it go for my own sanity. Some individuals have also accused me of being selfish for displaying my pregnancy in front of Jake's parents. Look, I hadn't planned to run into them. I was just out shopping with my spouse, minding my own business. I wasn't seeking for them specifically to rub my pregnancy in their faces. However, I'd be lying if I said it didn't feel great to see their astonished reactions. I experienced what I can only describe as a nightmare, with them continually belittling me, making me feel broken, and blaming me for everything. So, yeah, it felt nice to demonstrate that I wasn't the problem or broken, but I wasn't trying to upset Jake or make any drama. All I wanted was to enjoy my life. I viewed our interaction as a fun boost to my self-esteem. Jake has pushed things to a whole new level. He didn't simply message me. He found out where I live. I have no idea how he found my address, and I am afraid. He arrived at my residence 2 nights ago. He hammered on the door for at least 15 minutes, wanting to speak with me. Fortunately, my husband Sam was home and promptly instructed him to leave. Jake refused, claiming that he only wanted to explain himself, but Sam quickly shut that down. He warned Jake that if he didn't leave, we would contact the cops. Jake eventually backed down, but not before shrieking that I had wrecked everything for him. It was quite terrifying. I can't help but fear that if I let things continue unchecked, he'll do something even more insane. Many people asked me how I discovered Jake had lost his fortune. Fortunately, I didn't learn all of the specifics straight from him. From what I've gathered from his angry messages, it appears that his parents feel completely betrayed. They were enraged when they found that the reason they never had grandchildren wasn't because of me, but rather Jake himself. They believe he lied to them for years, convincing them that I was the problem. Because their whole attention was on having grandkids, they thought Jake no longer deserved the inheritance they had intended to leave him. According to my understanding, they have now completely cut him off, both emotionally and financially. Jake is heartbroken by this, which I suppose is why he's pursuing me so aggressively. I do not feel bad about him losing the inheritance. I mean, what was I meant to do? Stay in a terrible marriage so his parents don't find out the truth? That is not on me. Jake made his own decisions. He could have told his parents the truth at any time, but instead he allowed them to mistreat me and never defended me. So, no, I don't feel sorry for what happened to him.